The Amsterdam underworld is becoming more and more fractured, and the Mocro War is in full swing. The presence of a duo of assassins composed of Noffel and Pirki is causing a stir in the milieu, especially since they are suspected of having played a role in the Wild West liquidation, in which 2 young people die, while their main target, Benauf, miraculously escapes.
You underestimate Pirki and Noffel. Noffel is someone who cuts you into pieces. They both have a cemetery named after them. They leave no trace when they kill people.
Even though many rumors are circulating against them, their actions mostly end with the dropping of the charges by the courts. In contrast to Pirki's story, which ends in August 2014, Noffel's story takes on a dimension of its own, where he will end up with those who are considered today to be the true godfathers of the Mocro Maffia. Noffel started very early with small offences. He was a very complicated child with many troubles. After using extreme violence against a man in 2002, Noffel was examined by psychologists and psychiatrists, who described him as antisocial, mentally retarded, and above all, as a person with very little awareness of his actions. And since he is recognized at having committed a number of violent crimes at a young age, the judges sentence him to a mandatory treatment program with a little over a year in prison. TBS is a security measure that the court imposes on the inmate to protect society. The goal of the treatment is to prevent the mentally ill prisoners from reoffending, committing further crimes once back in civilian life. However, this does not change anything for Noffel, who struggles to reintegrate into society and ends up sinking this time into big business. In the streets of Amsterdam, it is not uncommon to see him with the rapper known under the pseudonym JJ and Jagga Jagga. He grew up in a family with many difficulties. His lonely mother even started to traffic drugs with her elder sons to support the family. JJ was only 8 years old at the time of his mother's arrest.
Mama deed dirt om eens goed te zien, krap ik aan mijn voeten friet. Ik was een younging on a mission, maar je moest me zien. Started for the bottom, ik bouwde mijn eigen piramide.
JJ and his little brother are allowed to visit their mother once a month in prison. It's a real struggle for the boys, who have been bathed in delinquency since childhood. Eventually, despite the obstacles, JJ began rapping in his neighborhood and was soon spotted by the big boys who noticed his promising talent. It wasn't long before he was on stage because, unlike what is seen in the rap industry today, JJ had street credibility because he lived what he said, especially since a shooting by his rap group Green Gang in 2009. A car was riddled with a dozen bullets, in which the occupants miraculously survived.
The members of the Green Gang create their own world in which drugs and violence predominate. Suspects claim to be pursuing a career in music, but it's a criminal career.
A stiff sentence of 10 years is demanded against JJ as one of the shooters, but the court is quite lenient towards the 17-year-old minor. He hasn't even served 2 years in juvenile detention. Once out, he really wants to focus on music.
Green Gang, guap, getters, wij nemen de game over.
He declares in a studio that prison was useless to him and that it'll cost him too much money. However, at this point, it's not music that will fill his pockets, but crime.
En voor je veiligheid surround yourself with shooters.
Being at the heart of the conflict between Gwinnett and Hose in Amsterdam, in one of JJ's clips, a blurred man appears. According to the media outlet Panorama, the round figure was attributed to his close friend Noffel. According to the investigative services, they began committing crimes together. Seeing the two friends spend the evenings in nightclubs is not insignificant. and on the street, the reality of their friendship is reinforced, especially since a photo posted on JJ's Twitter in 2013 showing Knopfel next to a large bottle of alcohol. In the milieu, Knopfel is seen as a part of Gwinnett Martha's entourage, especially since the Wild West affair. Therefore, the rumours of JJ's chosen camp seem to go in the same direction.
Wie praat die gaat, regels die we hanteren. Als je een kant kiest, kan je niet van kant keren.
JJ, who posts heavily on social media and travels around the world, finally finds himself on August the 27th, 2014 in southern Spain, where he accompanies his friend Knopfel to an appointment that turns out to be one of the most crucial missions of the time. To understand what happens next, we must analyse the structure of Gwinnett's organisation. The core of the group, which is already well known, has ramifications with other notorious personalities of the milieu. From the link with Knopfel emerge, for example, messages exchanged with Surali. In these messages, the email address belonging to Knopfel is registered under the nickname of Exi Tibba and Tibba. In addition, when we look at one of the financial notes seized from an encrypted phone of the Martha Group during a search by the police, encodings were made, also in connection with a certain Tibba. Knopfel also appears in a file with Khalid when they clashed with other visitors at the iconic Jimmy Woo Club in Amsterdam in 2012. Even if Khalid occupies an important position in Gwinnett's hierarchy, it is Ziggy who becomes one of his rare confidants. However, as already mentioned, Ziggy is not so trustworthy when he gradually begins to surround himself with other groups, one of which would be led by the big drug lord Samir, aka Scarface. At this point, there is really no open conflict between Gwinnett's group and Scarface's group, unlike Gwinnett and Hose. And to win this war, alliances are desired. To reinforce Gwinnett's team, a friend who is considered to be an important player in the underworld has come to help. It is indeed Richard, alias Rico the Chilean. Gwinnett would even have told Ziggy the news.
It will make us stronger.
This news is not really going to come true for Gwinnett because soon after, one evening in May 2014, it all comes to an end and his story ends here. From this point on, it seems that the heirs of Gwinnett continue the route with Rico's organisation, while Ziggy leaves with Scarface, while keeping a foot in the old team. According to the Himalaya trial, at this time Khalid is considered the leader of Gwinnett's group. Nevertheless, his position in Rico's hierarchy places him only at the level of middle management. Indeed, the group around Rico plays in a completely different league, a league where everyone is trying to gain control of the coke business, and the fastest way to do so is to eliminate the competition. When mentioning the direct competitor, eyes naturally turn to the ultra-rich Scarface, which operates mostly in Spain. His network is composed of two brothers, Mohammed and Faisal, among others. Mohammed has previously appeared in an investigation into a cargo transport of almost 4 tons of coke from South America to Spain in 2013. In this operation, called Cazador, he was arrested in Ecuador, together with several Colombian citizens. Mohammed, who had used a fake passport, was finally released by the Ecuadorian authorities around July 16, 2014. Upon his release, members of his network exchanged cryptic messages mentioning his Enetcom nickname Tamiz.
Tim's is released.
Alhamdulillah, brother. It's dope. Tamiz is outside. Fortunately, it's good.
The fact that he had access to a fake passport is not surprising, because his brother Faisal bribed an official at the municipality of The Hague, Mildred van D, who worked in the department where passports were issued. Thanks to her function, she provided a dozen passports for notorious criminals against a remuneration of €1,000 for each. Although the passports were intended for members of Scarface's network, Knopfler was on the list, which is consistent with the assumption that the two networks were probably not yet on bad terms. On August 27, 2014, Mohammed spends his time in Spain with Scarface. The two even go to Deutsche Bank in Marbella for business. It looks like a typical day. However, once the sun goes down, Scarface meets his friend Ziggy, with whom he sets out for a meeting at an all-in-one cafe. Around the table of a terrace are already several personalities of Amsterdam who welcome them, including Knopfler and JJ. Time is running out, and the end of the evening is approaching. Scarface, who looks relaxed as he arrives, dressed as if he's going to the beach, doesn't yet realize that there's already a team nearby, waiting for the green light. When Ziggy puts a friendly arm around Scarface, two armed men show up. Scarface, who tries to flee, does not escape his scheduled liquidation. From the surveillance footage of the cafe, it appears that after the attack, Ziggy leaves the cafe in remarkable calm, as if the plan had been preconceived. There is also a flood of messages from Scarface's network discussing the news that very night.
Brother, how was he? How were his last hours? Poor brother.
Brother, he was tired. We laughed today and we had been to the bank. He had been with me to X to arrange my insurance. We talked for hours for a few euros. He said that from time to time, it is good to fight for a few coins. Brother, he told me that I should have again this slab.
In the milieu, it is directly apparent that Ziggy was used as a decoy, which betrayed his new business partner Scarface. On the site of the television AT5, comments appear after the liquidation. Some indicate that it was done in the name of Rico, and that it is indeed he who will take care now of the logistic chain of the drug. Finally, a few months later, the TCI, a police unit that collects information from the underworld, receives information that Rico was indeed the client. It is very likely that the group around Rico wanted to seize power, and Scarface was the first obstacle on the way. Anyway, the story still goes on because Ziggy is not spared by the entourage either. The man is barely heard from again after the mission in Marbella. Ziggy was last seen in Madrid, where he disappeared from the earth. The man is presumed dead. Again, a message from TCI suggests that Rico is behind the disappearance, to prevent his name from being associated with the liquidation of Scarface. Not to mention that Ziggy was perceived by some as the traitor to Gwinnett's group. Ziggy's disappearance worries his Brazilian girlfriend. He has not answered her calls for a while, and so she decides to go to Spain to look for him. In a huge stress, Luana goes to the hotel in Madrid where Ziggy was staying. In the room, she discovers that all of his belongings are untouched, which clearly suggests that the man simply never returned there. The fear only increases. Luana returns to Amsterdam, where she asks many questions and puts all her energy to discover the truth of what happened. It becomes from then on too much of a risk, and thus her life ends on December the 8th, 2014, under the eyes of her little daughter. In this case, the detectives are again unable to identify the perpetrators. An anonymous letter was received.
Luana had to die because she knew too much about the group.
Luana's sister and mother hold Khalid responsible, among others. It is known that she would have hinted to him shortly before her death that she intended to talk to the police, which did not leave much choice to the group around Rico, probably deciding to dismiss her.